Welcome in, everybody. My name is James O'Hagan. I am the Director of Digital and Virtual Learning for the Racine Unified School District, and I'm here to talk to you tonight a little bit about our virtual program. Now, our virtual program is very diverse in that we service students through grades K through 12. We do not have a 4K program, unfortunately, but we really believe in our virtual program about making virtual personal. And if you're thinking that this might be a good option for your children, but the only experience that you've had with your children in any kind of virtual sense has been through the remote learning of where your child sits in front of a computer for 6 hours a day and listens to a teacher lecture, this is not that kind of a virtual program. So hopefully this will give you an idea of what this is, what this can be for you and your kids, and what this can mean for your family going forward as far as educational options for your children. Just to let you know that our program is about 10 years old. And again, we do service students in the elementary, middle, and high school grades. We also have a variety of different AP courses, elective courses, things that they can't necessarily get at the high school. Am I good?
Really tiny on the camera.
Oh, I'm really, well, because we're going to bring you guys in just a second. I just wanted to make sure that, I know, yes, sorry, everybody. Getting feedback from the peanut gallery here. So again, I just want to introduce everybody, and as we're going through this, if you have questions tonight, I have Michelle and Kelly. They are our moderators in the chat. Feel free to put your questions into chat, and then at the end of the presentations that we have here tonight, when we talk about elementary, middle, high school, and also getting our parent perspective, we will make sure to also have some time to answer any questions that you may have. And we will also have these videos available later for you to review if you need to. Also, if you are interested in our program, we do have an interest form, and that link will be going into the chat every so often. So Kelly or Michelle will post that into chat for everybody. So if you are interested, please feel free to fill that out. And within the next week, we will be getting in contact with you to maybe answer some more questions and find out if you want to put your child into our virtual program. Well, with that said, I want to get us right into talking about, because it is so hot in this room, and our air conditioning is broken in our office right now. But I want to talk to you first about our elementary program. So I want to invite in Ms. Sue Ellen Cron, Katie Hendricks, and Chris Hood to come in and join me to talk about our elementary program. I feel like
I'll scoot around behind you. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So if you would just go ahead and do a quick introduction.
Hi, Sue Ellen Cron. I teach in the elementary, obviously, K through 5.
I'm Katie Hendricks, and I teach elementary K-5 as well.
And I'm Chris Hood. I do mentoring for elementary and middle school, and also teach game design.
Yeah, you have a game design and a computer coding class, right?
Yes.
Too, right? Okay. So, I think one of the biggest questions that people are going to have about everything that we're doing here is they're so used to school being an 8 to 3 kind of experience. They're used to, things being on a clock. What is virtual school like compared to, again, a lot of people think, well, is this going to be like remote? It's very different than remote. What is school like with you all in this virtual program?
Well, I can go ahead. We start our days with morning meetings. So we start with a kindergarten through 2nd grade morning meeting, and then a 3rd through 5th, and just kind of a time for us to come together, start our day, greet one another, find out what's new, similar to a morning meeting or a morning circle that the kids experience in the regular brick and mortar buildings, play games with one another, read stories. It's a time for us just to connect with the children, see how everyone's feeling, share some smiles and laughter. And then following that is the time when we are able to kind of break out into smaller groups, whether we are working with 2 3rd graders who are struggling with understanding setting in a story, or whether we're working with some of our 5th grade students, or maybe just working with an individual student who's struggling with a concept. So our day has a lot of flexibility where we can pull different groups of children and do longer, more intensive sessions with them to kind of get them up to speed with skills that they might not quite have.
Okay, and Sue Ellen, what's something that I guess in that school day that that's really different, I guess, than say the traditional school that you really enjoy?
I think one of the things that has been a major focus in my job as a teacher since day one is building those relationships, being able to really realize where the students are at, where they're coming from. And with the virtual programming, because of the fact that they're not in a classroom setting and that you have that opportunity to meet with them individually, you're able to build those relationships with them. There's a lot of trust where the students feel a lot more comfortable coming to you with questions or sharing something. And I think having that opportunity to be so individualized in their instruction and allowing them to learn at their own pace rather than a classroom of today we're doing this lesson, today we're doing this one. Each child gets what they need, whether it's remediation or whether it's, challenging them into a new subject. And I think I've said this to several people throughout the year, not knowing what elementary virtual education was going to be, except for my experience I had with COVID. I feel that I have become so much of a better teacher because I'm meeting each child where they're at rather than moving those students forward if they're struggling or.
I agree with that. Our materials that we use have the wonderful feature of allowing a retry. And when I was a classroom teacher, sometimes time doesn't afford you the time to really acknowledge what a retry is and go back and really honor
Relearn.
the gaps in a student's learning. And so today I was working with a student whose dad had reached out and he said, I need some help with science. And we went through assignment by assignment and looked at where he had made errors, and it was in gravity and he didn't understand it. And I think back to when in a traditional classroom with 28 students, I might have had 3 or 4 that I wasn't able to reach. And today I was like, this is awesome. I totally reached him. I got it. And he got it, which was it was wonderful.
And I think too, because the term that a lot of people are tossing around right now is learning loss. And it's not a phrase that I'm really hip to, but it's easy for people to say like, okay, my kid has had a disjointed learning experience over the last couple of years. How might an experience with you two versus the regular classroom when they go back next fall, how might it address some of those gaps? I think you just kind of pointed out a way where, again, getting down a little more personal down to that individual student, but how might an experience like this help with some of these gaps? Because I'm thinking about, the fact that some of you, Sue Ellen, you've worked with some of these kids across K through 5 all year, that kid who goes from kindergarten to first grade and first grade to second grade, looping is something that a lot of schools have done in the past. It's where you get the same teacher each year, but as you develop these relationships, you get to know these kids and almost can predict where they might have
Their errors.
struggles
Correct.
or issues, right?
Yeah, I came from teaching at Gifford Elementary, and before that North Park, primarily all first and second grade. And when the pandemic hit and we were teaching from home, I made sure that not a day went by that there wasn't an opportunity to meet with me, whether I read them a book, and built those relationships from March until June and made sure that learning was still happening. And many of my students, even though they weren't in my school or even my classroom, had reached out to me. And when I was offered the virtual position, we probably had 6 families that followed me here, and having the opportunity to actually know those students already and having, the ability to have taught them and be able to decipher what they need and what they don't need because I've built that relationship already gave me an advantage to, really, really fly with them, I think.
I want to also share one other thing I've noticed as a teacher with respect to virtual. And maybe you can speak to this too, the level of focus for the teacher is entirely different than a teacher in a classroom because we have the luxury of being with no other distractions. And that to me has really allowed me to drill down to where some of those learning gaps are. And so to say, I understand, your second grade year kind of got terminated early. You didn't get those modules that you would have in the classroom. And now we're able to go and kind of do the recovery. But
At a much quicker pace.
correct, but doing it virtually, we can do it at the child's speed. And I can find where the holes are, where unfortunately in some of those bigger settings and with all the other distractions, we don't have the time to get there.
And I think the other part that's important with all of this, or for all of you, is that it's not just relationship building with the student, but it's also the relationship building with the parent. That this is not just your kids are dropped off and then they come out the other side at 3 o'clock like they would in a traditional school. And I'm not saying that's an extent for everybody, but I really see that the parent relationships in this program are unique to anywhere. If you said, where are the strongest parent relationships? I would argue that it's in this program right here.
Correct.
We need that. We need the parent input. We need the parent to help, because it is student-centered learning. And for the youngest kids, it's something that they're not going to learn right away. It's something they're not going to master in a year or so, because this is a process where kids are able to, if they know a concept, they're able to work further on it and just don't have to worry about the rest of the class catching up to them. Or if they're having troubles with the concept, they can work at their own pace and not have to worry about trying to catch up to make sure they are able to master it when the class does. We want parents to feel at ease, and we want the kids to feel at ease, because it's student-centered. We don't have to worry about everybody else. Your student counts.
Well, and I think too, the parents also count. I mean, we've had plenty of experiences too. Student-centered, correct, but I really feel like we go almost for like a family. I mean, we had the one family who went to Mexico at the start of the pandemic, and they were there for all 4 months.
They left in October and came back in February.
But we're
and
still learning
They
from
came
Mexico.
every single day from a completely different country to learn with my class every single day. And even though they were in Mexico, bar a few internet issues on a day or two, I was still able to meet with that student individually. I was still able to be involved with that family and what was going on, and even cooler was they were able to share where they were in the country and the experiences they were having there with our students in the classroom. So having that aspect of being able to participate in Racine Unified Virtual Learning in a completely different country, or vacation spot you might be in, or emergency travel you have to make with family, and your child's not missing school.
Well, I've even at the high school level have had students who are ballet dancers. I've had, I think, 5 different ballet dancers who have basically taken us because they needed to train specifically for ballet, for example. We help students in all those kinds of situations.
I was
Learning
thinking,
never stops.
the learning doesn't stop. I have a family in my class where the child's grandmother is going through some medical treatments, and they traveled to Tennessee to be with her, and were able to stay an extra week to help her and support her recovery. And the child didn't miss a day of school, and the mom got on and she said, I thank you for the consistency of this, because she would have missed 2 weeks of school. So it's really just, any place, anytime, she was able to log in and get her work done.
So what are some of the curriculum is fine. I mean, everybody can do curriculum. Everybody can, set up math or whatever. What about socialization opportunities? Because we don't want it to just be, again, we're talking about making virtual personal. We don't want it to just be this sterile, sitting behind a computer thing. And again, we're not talking about sitting behind a computer for 6 hours.
No.
How do we because virtual is the medium for which we deliver the instruction, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the experience, right?
Right.
So how are you breaking that up in the day?
I think one of the biggest things when I came over, and again, I'm just going to stress, this is a new program for, the district. We're a year into it, and I cannot believe how successful it's been. Word of mouth, when schools reopened, the amount that we had to, hire another teacher because it's been so successful. And I think that main reason is because of the socialization. I made sure that we still have the morning meetings. Katie has morning meetings opposite of me so that, you know, we could potentially cover each other's classes. So if one of us were missing, we still have that aspect daily. We make sure that now that COVID restrictions have been lifted, that we're providing opportunities for our students to learn in our building, to go into the community, to meet the students in their neighborhoods or close to their homes. We've had walking trips over to Worcester Museum, which is right next to the building. Additionally, I had not played a lot of online games and was introduced to a game through James called Among Us, and never playing it before. The amount of collaboration and fun and oh my goodness, it's something we've continued and do now as a group together every afternoon from 2 to 3. Kids can come in, drop in as they need it. I think we have a lot of drop-in opportunities for them, but this virtual drop-in to gameplay with their friends has been a phenomenal opportunity as well.
Not only that, our space, and I know that you'll share with our guests later, but the space that we work in lends itself to spread out and work with groups. We have students that come in and work with us here at various times in the day. We have children that come in and work on music programs, doing science activities. So there are a lot of different, and like Sue Ellen said, with things kind of starting to ease up, we're able to do so much more of that where they're getting more interaction with one another, which is great.
You know, it's there's something we didn't share with the last one, but I found the most touching story was actually involving you and a first grader who came in here and had never written her name before.
Yes.
And she came in here and she was writing on your window over there, and you know, a lot of practice and write, you know, so it's not just, again, it's a virtual program where the instruction is, you know, we can get our course stuff online, but that doesn't define the experience. That it's not all just a virtual stale thing. This is really about, again, providing a unique opportunity for flexibility, for choosing how and where you learn. A lot of freedoms that a lot of kids in traditional schools don't have. So do we do field trips?
We do so many field trips. Prior to Ms. Hendricks coming in, I would do the standard Racine Unified School District field trips that we'd go to the Golden Rondell. We would go to Coles Wild Theater provided opportunities. We went to the Racine Humane Society, things that were provided to district as well. And once Katie got here, she started doing a lot of research into Flipgrid field trips.
So doing live events where you get people from the company Flipgrid who go out into different parts of the world and live stream, interact with their guests. We had to register, but then the kids could chat, asking questions, and the families and the parents, I mean, the kids loved them.
I think the one that my favorite one this year was the zoo one.
Oh yeah,
which we did and the other schools didn't do.
Right? Yeah, we had a hour-long field trip with the Racine Zoo, and they showed us animals, and you know, all the students were able to interact and ask questions, and it was a pretty neat opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to highlight this, and we'll highlight this again for when we talk about middle and high school programs, that your child, even as part of the virtual program, does not mean that they're then cut off from their home schools if they wish to be part of the music programs there, if they want to do the plays, if they want to do any of those kind of extracurricular experiences, they can still have those and still be with us. So if they're playing a musical instrument right now and you're saying like, well, can they still play that musical instrument? Absolutely. Can they still be in that play? Absolutely. So don't feel like, again, this is just the instruction model is different, and this is not remote learning, so it's not sitting in front of a computer from 8 in the morning, 8 to 3. No, we break up the day, and again, most of our students, when we start to cut out the fluff, I won't call it fluff, but when you think about a school day, we're cutting out the passing time, we're cutting out the lunch time, we're cutting out the bathroom breaks, the snow pants.
Snow pants and boots.
Yes, the license fin stations.
The announcements and
Yes.
all of that.
We're getting down to, here's the stuff that the children need to learn, and then providing a much more holistic experience around it for them and the family. So I thank you for, they'll be back available for questions. So if you do have questions, please make sure you put those into the chat. Again, Kelly and Michelle are coordinating that. And we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to bring in our Amanda, who's going to talk with us about the middle and the high school program.
Right. Hi, everybody.
So hopefully the camera is, I don't have such a small peanut head right now because I had to zoom it out. We're good? Okay, all right. So Amanda, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the universe there?
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Hinkle. I have been a virtual French teacher for the state of Wisconsin through RUSD since 2014, and I've been a virtual learning mentor for RUSD since 2019.
So the elementary program, you've just heard quite a bit about it. The middle and the high school program is a little bit different, isn't it? How would you say, hearing what you heard about the elementary program, how is the middle and high school program a little different?
It is a little bit different, but it's not out of the realm of differences that you're not used to in the natural progression from elementary school to middle and high school. So I think we're all used to kind of this understanding that there's that one centralized teacher in the elementary experience. And then as we transition into middle and high school, you have more of those individual content teacher experts, if you will. And that's going to be the same experience as we transition into middle and high school in the virtual space as well. But we also have this wonderful addition of a virtual learning mentor who kind of acts as a home group teacher to look out for your child, to advocate for your child, to be the liaison between you and your family and the content teacher, whether that content teacher is down the street or in another part of the state. So those are two kind of great pieces that begin to build this team around your student.
Yeah, and I also serve as a mentor as well for some of our students. And I will say that the mentor, again, it's unless they're taking French from you, but it's typically a non-teaching teacher. And the research suggests that, and this research comes from, for those who care, it's Dr. Sugata Mitra in the School in the Cloud, when he put a computer in the wall in a slum in India and found that he could get students to a certain level, but it took that mentor, actually he called it the granny cloud, took that extra person to kind of help the student put it all together, because virtual learning for a student by itself, if you just said, okay, take these classes, can be very disaggregate, whereas the mentor kind of brings everything all together for the student. And again, I do a weekly check-in with my students. I feel that weekly check-in is very important because, again, there is a lot of independence. There's a lot of that students can have in this program, and it's very easy to go off the rails a little bit. So the mentor is really a key person to help kind of keep that student grounded in it.
Right. I always, when I first speak with students, and I have those weekly meetings as well, right now, for the most part, they're Google Meets, but as we transition to some students doing either mostly classes in person and 1 or 2 virtual classes, or perhaps a hybrid program, or perhaps 100% virtual program, I'll meet your student where they are. So whether that's Google Meet or in person in their building. And I like that you said kind of off the rails, because the way that I describe my position to students sometimes is you're learning to bowl and there's someone teaching you how to bowl, that's your content teacher. And then there's those bumpers that come up, and I'm your bumper. So every time you kind of sway one direction or the other, I'm there to support you and keep you in line and make sure you're going forward in the right track.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it. And when we're talking about the middle and high school program, I mean, we do have the core subject matter for courses, but we also have a tremendous number of electives. We have a tremendous number of AP courses. I mean, I think we have 16 different AP courses.
Yeah, it's a lot.
and I think that's important to say, because some of these AP courses are not offered at the traditional school. So for example, the one that I love and that I had a student complete this year was AP Psychology, which we would never have enough students to take an AP Psychology, run an AP Psychology course in the traditional school. So for a lot of our kids, especially for our students in the high school who are high flyers, they see this as a very unique challenge opportunity that they can pursue. Plus, for those of you who don't know this, I have 2 juniors who are graduating. They've completed all 26 of their credit requirements, and they did it in 3 years.
Absolutely.
Which try to do that in the traditional school is very difficult.
There's a lot of roadblocks. where in the virtual setting, you are really able to run when you want to run. And so you're able to not only pick AP courses and electives that simply cannot be offered in a traditional classroom or in one of the other buildings, because like you mentioned, there's not enough students to create that opportunity for a teacher to teach it. But now you're doing these things at your own pace. You can maybe take a course here and there when it makes sense in the summer, and you can create an opportunity where you're more than ready for that post-secondary experience, whatever you choose it to be. And you got there by choosing classes that you are passionate and that are about and that are unique to you as a learner.
And I think it's also important to realize too, that this isn't just, the virtual program isn't just for kids who are high flyers.
Right.
I know I've serviced a number of students who have had family issues, mental health issues, even some students who have homelessness.
Yeah.
Where they don't know that coming to school is not an easy option for them.
Place.
It's not coming to school is not a safe place, right? Where they feel like they need to separate themselves from the environment. We can, and we don't worry about, this is the great thing I love about this program too. We don't worry about if you don't show up on day one.
Right.
The day one is the day you show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
yeah.
Day one is
the day you start is the day you start.
The day you start is the day you start, right? You for some kids, they get caught in the middle of a, like you say, hey, we move in November. All right, you've missed everything from September and October. Here, what we can do is we can craft a plan around, okay, we're starting in November. How can we make this work for an entire school year?
Right.
So, and we can do that.
Absolutely. And I like that you talked about creating a safe place. We've talked about physical safety, health safety, emotional safety a lot this past year. And the virtual space is a space that now a lot of students who had no idea what it meant to kind of be in this position are now a little bit more comfortable with that idea. And they might even feel more secure sharing things and reaching out, knowing that they can, instead of maybe talk in front of an entire class, they can email something, they can audio file something. And so I think that we're seeing a lot of students who maybe wouldn't feel as comfortable to share and experience a traditional class, breaking out on their own and doing some experiences that are new to them. And I think that's a really positive thing to see.
Well, I thank you, Amanda, for being here. And again, if you have questions for Amanda or myself, please make sure that you put them in the chat. We will get to those in just a little bit. Also, hopefully if Kelly or Michelle are paying attention, go ahead and put the interest form link in there as well too. So
and the courses maybe.
What's that?
And the course listing.
Oh yeah, and the course listing if you can, because there's going to be some parents too who might want to say like, well, what are some of the courses that you offer? So make sure to include those links in the chat as well. I want to switch over because I'm going to come over to my computer. I'm going to do a quick transition over this way. So you're going to see me for a second. And then I'm going to bring on Miss Christina Shapiro. She's one of our parents. So just a quick transition here, and you can already see her. I am going to switch my camera and switch the microphone. Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hi, Mr. O'Hagan.
I just wanted to add, so again, you have two children in our virtual program. You have a student who's a 5th grader and a student who's a 7th grader, and you've been in here the whole year. So what, if I may ask, was it that made you decide to choose virtual as your option for this year?
Well, a couple of things. We were actually looking at the virtual program before COVID was a problem. So I have my 7th grader was having troubles in the traditional school setting. He's an LGBTQ kiddo and had a hard time with bullying through his transition. So for us, it was really, really amazing for him to have a safe place at home to transition where, people teasing in the classroom or things like that wasn't an issue. My 5th grader also was having a lot of trouble in the stereotypical classroom setting. And so we were looking for something new. I do also have a high schooler in the remote program. And part of why we went with virtual over remote for everybody else, my high schooler wanted to stay remote, and you pick your battles with teenagers. But part of the reason for us that it was so important to do virtual was to be able to work at our own pace and for them to have the freedom to go through what they need to go through. And school is the thing that we can work through when they're able to. So they've both been really successful with the program. It's been amazing for our family.
And I do love that, seeing Charlie and David on a regular basis, because I get to mentor, at least I get to mentor Charlie, and I just see David kind of popping around. But what's been a pleasant surprise, I guess, for you this year?
So one of my biggest concerns that turned out to be one of my things that I love the most is the socialization. With virtual learning, your concern is you pull the kid out of the classroom. Where are they going to meet friends? How are they going to do that? Especially because that was something they were both already struggling with. I love that Mrs. Cron does the morning meetings. That was a really, really pleasant surprise. At first, David didn't even want to wake up and go to them or anything. I think the first 2 weeks he didn't, and he went to one, and now he's like every day excited to see his friends in the meeting. And keyword in that sentence, his friends, and then another really pleasant surprise was that, now as things are starting to open up and get back to normal, they're getting together at, we went to the coffee house last week and everybody was still playing Among Us. There were a few kids that didn't join in person that were there via the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids were able to interact with each other in such a strong way. Academically, they've excelled, which I, to be honest, didn't expect in the middle of a pandemic. And then another pleasant surprise was, honestly, you're reaching out with our family so often, doing the meetings with Charlie when we hit family crisis. And, I called you and you just supported us incredibly through everything. And, with helping us get hooked up with counseling services, things like that. And really being able to just let school not always be, if it's not 8 to 3 and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just the amount of reassurance we've had with balancing their education. And I think the stress that so many families felt this year.
And I also think it's important too, because I noticed, like you said, Natalie, your oldest, chose remote, and it's not, there's some people who think this is the perfect thing for everybody. But I think for some students, this isn't necessarily always the best option. There's some students who maybe, parents may think this is the best option for their kids. But again, what I see with your children is that they while David might have fought it a little bit going to the morning meetings, but they've also been tremendous self-starters, and they built their confidence. What I love, you had a story about David and math, because again, David has struggled with math, but I think it's important to bring up David kind of thinking that he hacked the system, if you will.
Oh, yeah, he was, in the beginning of the year, he was struggling so hard with math that David and I were both literally crying at the kitchen table. We called Mrs. Cron with tears coming down our faces, and she had us in a video chat within 15 minutes and was like, slow down, let's figure this out. Closed the computer for the day because you're not going to learn if there are tears in your eyes. And agreed that the next day she would meet with him every day until he really started feeling confident. That was probably back in November. So then just a few weeks ago, David was giggling at the dining room table and it starts laughing hysterically, thinking that he hacked the system because he found a way that it's so easy. And he did an entire module of math, got 100% on every single assignment in 45 minutes. And he's cracking up over it. Well, he didn't hack anything. He just understood the material. And it's because of all that investment that Mrs. Cron had put in throughout the year, and he just got it. And he was having a blast at it. And things like that, seeing that grow throughout the year is incredible to me.
And I think, there might be some parents who are on here too who think, well, if we add more kids, are they going to have the time for me? Again, we have to think too about the schedule of the day. This isn't where teachers, while there are the morning meetings, yes, the teacher day is a lot of meeting one-on-one or in small groups with students to help them through the material that they're working on at the time. And while some students seem to fly through it, in this case, David at the end was flying through it. At the beginning, he struggled a little bit, but well, Charlie didn't have too many issues. But I think what's important with Charlie to bring up is that there were times when we just needed to back off, where school is fine, but we realize that there's other things going on in life, and we have to sometimes just take a break and say, you know what? We can put this on pause for now. Let's put it on pause, and you're not going to miss anything. Let's just take a couple of steps back and take a moment to breathe.
Well, and I think a lot of families probably feel this, that especially through this past year, how many of us felt like we were in crisis of one kind or another. We definitely had some huge events happen that kind of pushed forward that feeling of crisis, but sometimes other things need to be the priority. And I think it's okay that and the kids all, they're finishing on time anyhow. It's not a problem. With all A's, by the way, I had to brag. But that the world can stop spinning for a minute if they need it to, because they're just kids. And this is an unprecedented event in the history of our world with, there's just so much going on for a lot of families. For us to be able to work through that and not have school suffer as a result was incredible. And to be able to still have the same services that we would have in this school, where the kids can talk to a counselor and things like that. I felt like, if anything, it just made it easier for us to get through this, that their worlds could slow down and adjust to them.
And I did like how you talked briefly about meeting up at Mocha Lisa, and I wish I had brought this up more with the other, with Sue Ellen and Katie, because we aren't just doing this in our virtual learning offices where I'm sitting right now. We're also getting out into the community again and finding students where they are. So, for example, the main project on State Street, which my friend DeAndre runs. We've got Mocha Lisa, where we had students last week. Today we had students over at the library, at the public library, and there were students who were getting their library cards, which was great as well to see. So it's not just about being here, it's wherever we can choose to set up, for example, because I've seen Charlie over at Dad's and have meetings with Charlie while there. And it's not like we called off the meeting because Charlie wasn't there. We just still had the meeting. It's just you are where you are and Charlie was where Charlie was.
Well, and funny enough, even all the different things that start to happen around it all, where, for example, we've had, another family work with us, and the kids all get together and do their school together, and I'll have kids lined up in my house doing school together. And it's a kind of cool thing for them to still be able to, even learning with another kid there. That's a thing that I was worried about, as far as, being a parent. How do you connect with other families? And while it's been really easy, especially Ms. Cron using the Remind app, we're able to communicate with other parents on there too, to help get the kids together for learning in person together. But say, for example, another parent has to work. Well, sure, bring them by. They can work together. These kids are friends. And so that's been pretty cool too.
And you said your kids made friends this year.
Yeah, which is phenomenal, because and I hate to say it, but they didn't really have any before. They maybe each had, Charlie had a couple of close friends. David really struggled to make friends in school. And so for him to be able to connect with kids this year, especially through a pandemic when most of us feel lonely and isolated, I felt like through the virtual program, it really allowed them to have, it was like their time to shine. They were living their best lives. They met friends. They did so much, and so much time for growth. It's really pretty amazing to see.
Well, I really appreciate your support, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to check with it. This is the second time we've done this brief little interview, so thank you for being here, and thank you again for your support, and I look forward to us working to continue working together in the future.
Esports.
Esports, yes.
I had to.
Well, it's going to be happening for our middle school program at least, and probably our elementary, but we can't talk about that just yet. Okay. Thank you.
Socialization opportunities. That's all I got to say about that.
Well, thank you very much, Christina, for popping on. I really appreciate it. Also, I know we keep talking about the virtual learning office. I'm going to give you I'm going to use the camera that I have right here to kind of give it just a very brief. Oh, before I do, somebody asked a question just now, and it's a very important question. What about kids with special needs? It is important for everybody to realize that virtual is a great option for a lot of kids. It's not a great option for all kids. But what I will say is, if you have a child who has special needs with an IEP or a 504 plan, please make sure we are going to work with you every step of the way to make sure that we find the right fit. And if we service kids with special needs, we service kids who have who need speech, we service kids who need minutes for reading or for math. We do those all, and we found that those work really well remotely. We also find that we can do some things on site if needed. So if your child has special needs and you're thinking about virtual learning as an option, absolutely, please do feel free to fill out the interest form, and we will make sure that we are part of the IEP plan to make sure that we are meeting the needs for your child. So Ms. Nicole Arnold, thank you for asking that question. It's a very important question, and I'm sorry that I did not bring it up sooner. So, but I do want to give just a very brief view of our space that we have here. So if I can, I'm going to just switch the camera here so you all can take a quick peek. So as you can see, the colors, the lights just went out. The colors of the room are trauma-informed colors, so we try to keep things blues and greens. As you can see, we do have nice natural light in here. We do have soft seating areas for kids. We do actually right now our breakout rooms are being used as offices, but we do have small breakout rooms. There's some of the high seating that we have, and again, you can see some of the low seating, charging spots in the tables as well too, which is important. But as you can see, the space is very open and is meant to be kind of reconfigured as needed. So that is our virtual learning office. Now, we are getting close to the end, but I'm sure that some of you may have questions. So if you have questions for the group, I don't know if Ms. Cron and Hendricks and Amanda and Chris want to come back around. We can kind of put the camera back on them here so we can make sure we get some question time with them. If there's anything that they can answer or I can answer. Michelle, do we have anything?
So we do have one. We have a parent that already filled out the interest form and was wondering what the next steps are.
So I do realize that in looking at things that we do have parents who did sign the interest form. We'll be getting in touch with you in the next week. But if you're really excited about this opportunity and you want to switch your children over, we will start to make those plans right now, and we can get those your children moved over in Infinite Campus so that they're prepared to start in the fall. Any other questions that we have tonight?
I don't see anything coming in on the chat right now. However, I do think that it would be important to mention the question that came in from our last session, which is, can students come to the office every day? And what does that look like?
Okay, so I'll give my brief answer, but then I'll let the other teachers talk on this. Again, if you think about the school day, yes, you can have your kids come to our office, but what I will say is we don't want them just being here from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, okay? We want to make sure that we have a plan, that we have a purpose for when they're coming in. So if they're coming into work with, say, Ms. Hendricks or Ms. Cron for an hour on something specifically, that they're here for the hour. We don't want to, again, because if you think about the school day and you chop the school day down, remove the passing time, remove the taking off of the coats and the bathroom breaks and the lunch time and all that stuff, really when we get down to it, school is a much smaller time frame than the 8 to 3 time that a lot of kids have. So we want to make sure that the time that they're here is purposeful, because if they're going to be here to work, we want to make sure that they're working for the full time. Anything that you guys, I'm going to switch the camera around. Anything you want to add to that?
I just think now with the COVID restrictions, obviously not as strict as they are, we have been able to provide, this space for students to work. Initially, we started with our grades 3 through 5 for forward prep because they hadn't taken standardized tests in a year or two. Some had never taken the forward at all. That opportunity to provide that kind of intense instruction on whatever Wisconsin history and such like that, kind of opened our eyes to the fact that we could provide this space for collaboration for the kids in many different ways. And so we opened up our space Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 1 to 3 as drop-in sessions where students could come for homework help, or we'd try to provide them with some sort of an educational opportunity, whether it was we hatched some butterflies and let them go at Worcester Museum. We introduced them to a new program called Soundtrap, where they were learning how to create their own music and create podcasts. So we definitely want to encourage our students to come into our building, but much like you said, making sure that they're not just standing around here for 8 hours, that the time that they are utilizing here is specific to whatever learning opportunity we're providing or instruction that they may need.
And then speaking to that as well, as far as coming to the building, I have a student whose mom needed some support, and she just needed some extra help. And so we set up a schedule where her daughter comes in Monday, Wednesday, Friday for about 45 minutes per time. And she's not coming in for socializing, she's coming in for instructional help. Some kids thrive doing one-on-one sessions with us virtually. Some kids require the teacher and the hand over hand and working together. And that's something that this space allows us to do, where she comes in and she's gotten to the point where mom can just pull up and she can just walk right up the stairs right into our building. It's really, it's just a win-win.
I see a question on here that I wanted to address really quickly. Do high school students learn lessons from a live teacher? So again, we talked about the remote experience where it's lecture based. Amanda, can you, because you are one of our, and Michelle, I guess you can also answer this question because you're both also online teachers.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, so the material, the kind of the skeleton is there for students to learn on their own. Students do their work asynchronously for the most part in middle and high school.
Asynchronous meaning what?
Asynchronously meaning they don't need to like sign into a Google Meet at a specific time with attendance taking, and they're doing this lesson this day, right? They're signing in on when works best in their schedule. They can log into their class 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, and they can work towards the end goal of completing that semester. So while there is no set day and time that you are face to face with an instructor and they are teaching you and walking you through the material, it's more there for the student to consume on their own. I want to make it very clear that it is not as though these students are abandoned, right? The teachers, the content teachers, as well as the virtual mentors, we are here to support you. It is a much more student-driven experience where if you need support, if you want to work one-on-one with the teacher, all you have to do is ask. And there's so many different ways that content teachers in the middle school and high school can collaborate with their students. Asynchronous, so at the kind of different times, or synchronous Google Docs, so working at the exact same time with the teacher on a Google Doc and you're in completely different places. If the teacher happens to be local, you could meet up somewhere. That's definitely a possibility. You could do Google Meets, Zoom Meets, telephone calls. Some teachers do text messages. So, I mean, the possibilities are really endless, and content teachers and virtual learning mentors are there for students. It's just much more of a student-driven outreach from the middle and the high school perspective.
Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
She nailed it. She said everything I was going to say.
All right. I'm not, let's see. Oh, okay. How often would you touch base with parents for middle and high school level? For me personally, I'm about once a week.
Yep, so I do virtual check-ins with my students. Parents are always welcome to those check-ins, but they're primarily kind of, again, student one-on-one with the students. Any member of the team is welcome to go to those check-ins, of course. But then we also do progress reports that go out to the entire team team being student, any parent guardian that's on the account, counselor, that goes out at least twice a month, if not 4 times a month. So we are in constant communication, and you probably would see more progress reports from a virtual course than you would in a face-to-face traditional classroom. So.
And the other thing to add to that too is if the parent says, well, what are you learning? You can pull it right up
Yeah.
and say, here it is. It's right here. Here's
Yep.
my entire class.
Exactly, all of it, yep.
Yeah.
Well, we also do give parents access
Oh, yeah.
to the coursework as well.
To the guardian accounts.
Yeah, through their guardian accounts, that gives them access to what's in the course. They can't do the work in the course, but they can see where the child is progressing and what concepts they're good at and whatever they need help with.
Right.
Would it be okay if I interjected on that as well, Mr. O'Hagan?
I'm sorry, Ms. Shapiro, what'd you say?
Oh, would it be okay if I added something to that as well?
Please do.
Okay, so I wanted to say from personal experience with it too. Obviously, my elementary teacher or my elementary student has daily check-ins with his teacher, which is wonderful. But as far as the middle school program goes, Mr. Hood has been an incredible support that I know he's always available for us. And then you as well, Mr. O'Hagan, meeting with us every week and more if needed. I feel very, very confident that I always know exactly what they're working on without having to, necessarily jump through a lot of hoops or email a bunch of teachers, which is kind of what we're doing with the remote program at high school. I feel like I have a much better grasp on knowing exactly what my kids are working on at all times because there's excellent communication with the parents. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for adding that because that is unpaid for, unsolicited support. All right, if I'm not seeing any other questions, Michelle, you're usually pretty good on the details. Is there anything that we missed tonight?
Not that I see, especially since we added in that course list link for parents to take a look at some of our unique courses that we offer, especially at the high school level. We have a lot of electives that we can't always offer in building. So we have that list provided. I don't know if we want to drop that one more time. I will say there was one question from the previous meet time that we had about parent involvement. So what if a parent is working full time? How involved do they need to be? I know we touched on it a little bit, but I think those full-time parents are probably a little bit concerned on how they're going to be able to touch base with our team during odd hours.
And I can speak to that. I have, I think 2 or 3 families where the parents are both working full time, but they're not comfortable with sending their students back into the full classroom setting for whatever reason. And that's the beauty of our virtual program is they can access their coursework when it's available for them. The students will meet with either Ms. Hendricks or myself. Our K2 group meets at 8:45. Our 3-5 group meets at 9:30, and they still have that daily check-in, regardless of it. They're at a daycare. They're being taken care of by elder siblings or family members, so they're still seeing their classmates daily if the opportunity provides. They're still able to meet with either one of us to get their one-on-one instruction or small group instruction. And we do obviously encourage the parent involvement. And if that happens to be, if they have time at the end of the day or over the weekend, where they can spend that time together and do the instruction, the virtual learning is open 24/7. It's not that 8 to 3. So it's what works for you. And we look to get about 2 hours a day would be perfect. Like a half an hour each subject, but that doesn't necessarily work for everyone. So the virtual learning is able to work for whatever your schedule happens to be.
All right, I think that's pretty solid, and it's pretty. Let's see. Oh, great question also that just came in, but this is more of a high school question, so I'll leave this for the high school folks. My daughter is currently failing 3 classes in high school. How would that work for recovery if she were enrolled? We can still offer credit recovery courses. So we have the capacity to do that. In fact, we're going to have a brand new system that's going to integrate very well next year for our credit recovery system. And so we are able to take care of that directly. But let's say that your child is taking a virtual course from us, but is failing that course. We can also extend the course if we need to. We can allow retakes, we can allow redos. So to this person who asked this question, it's very rare that we have a student who, if they're engaged, ever fails, because there's a lot of opportunity to go back and redo things, right? It's not a matter of so much about getting things the first time. It's a matter of, we really believe in education. We really believe in learning. We really believe in the process of that. And while there are some kids who nail it on the first time, there are some who need to take it through. I had a student this year, she took Algebra 2, Semester 2 for the entire school year because she needed that entire school year. And she got, I think, a B+ or an A-, but she needed it to go at that pace. It was the last math class that she needed. And she's like, look, I can't get this done in 16. I need 32 weeks. I said, fine, we'll do it in 32 weeks. But she finished and she's graduating here. So very happy. Yes. Any other questions? I will say this, if you have any additional questions, again, we will be reaching out to those people who fill out the interest form. Kelly, if you would just drop that link in there one more time for people. And if you have those questions, we're more than happy to follow up with you, and you can hold those questions until we do a personal follow-up. But we'd like to thank everybody for your time tonight. Please feel free, again, fill out that interest form. Kelly just dropped it in the chat, and we look forward to connecting with you. Everybody, please take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.